Okay guys, let's talk about what we're doing in class today. We're really going over how to graph and solve systems graphically. So to do that, we need to really break down each aspect of it. So if you turn your worksheet side over, you should have something that looks very similar to this back, and we're just going to fill it out together real quick. So to start with, let's talk about what slope-intercept form is. And all slope-intercept form is when, whoops, let me plug this in. Okay, all slope-intercept form is when y equals mx plus b. Okay, that is where y is your y-coordinate, m is your slope, x is your x-coordinate, and b is the y-intercept. So when it all strings out, it looks like this. Y equals mx plus b, where this is my slope, this is my y-intercept, or the point when x is equal to 0 and y has a value. This is your y-coordinate, and this is your x-coordinate. Okay, and that's all really slope-intercept form is. Okay, if we wanted to go a little bit more in depth, we could come over here and look at what standard form is. Standard form is ax plus bx equals c. And all that really is saying that some number touching x plus some number touching y, ax plus b, y equals c. Some number plus touching b is equal to some number. Okay, and when we remember that, we looked at our slope was the opposite of x, whatever's touching x, so we're going to use the negative sign to show we're taking the opposite of a, all divided by my y value, or whatever was touching the y. And my y-intercept was just whatever value of c is over whatever value of y was. So that was my hack on how to get the slope and the y-intercept out of standard form. Okay, when we went into it a little more in depth, okay, we were talking about what is slope. Well, slope is just the rise over the run, or it's also my horizontal movement or my vertical movement. So it's my vertical movement over my horizontal movement. Okay, so in this case, if I'm looking at what is my slope, here 2 is my slope. But what that represents is really 2 over 1, which tells me for every 1 horizontally I move, I'm moving 2 vertically. And again, if I was going the opposite direction, I'd be going down 2 and to the, or down 2 and to the left 1. The negatives, remember, tell us directionality, not distance. So over here in standard form, the first thing I would need to do is figure out what my slope was. Okay, my slope is going to be the opposite of whatever is touching my x value, which in this case is -4 over my y value, which is 1. So when I distribute my negative in, I get 4 over 1 is my slope, which means if I was drawing a slope triangle, it's telling me to go over 1 and up 4. That's what that is telling me. This diagonal line is your slope. Okay. Now, when we go into it a little more in depth, and we scroll all the way down to these new guys here, what we're dealing with is how do we graph in slope-intercept form. First thing we need to do is bring some units in here. Okay, now the first thing we need to do is find the y-intercept, which in this case is my -3, which would be represented at 0, -3, so I'm going to make my point at 0, -3. Then I'm going to move by my slope. Okay, my slope in this case is -1 over 3, which this is my horizontal movement, and this is my vertical movement. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the right, and 1 down. Or if I wanted to move my negative sign and switch them, I could go 3 to the left and 1 up, and it stays on the same line. And you just connect your dots. Okay, so that would be my line. Connect dots would be your third step. Now in standard form, it's a little more difficult. First thing we need to do is find the y-intercept, which is the opposite, or which is, sorry, not the opposite, which is c over b, or in this case, 3 over 3. So when I draw on my lines to do my graphing, I have 3 over 3 is plus 1 is going to be my y-intercept. Now my slope was the opposite of a over b, which in this case would be the opposite of 5 over 3. So from here now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So that would be minus 5, that would be plus 3. And my line would go through those 2 points. Okay? And again, I know this is a review. I know we've done lots of graphing and slope-intercept, but I want it to be really clear as we're going forward, especially with the S-back looming, that we have this down. Okay? Now the last thing we need to do is take a look at, now that we've talked about what slope is, we've graphed some stuff in standard and slope form, how do we solve a system in slope form? And all solving a system is where the 2 lines are going to cross. So in this case, I'm just going to draw my lines in, and I'm going to graph these 2 lines quickly. Okay, so for this one, it's going to be negative 3 with a slope of 2, which means I'm going 1 over, 2 up, and I'm going to make my line. So this would be y equals 2x minus 3. Now for this guy, I'm going to go up to plus 2. I'm going to go 1 over 3 down. 1 over and 3 down, which would put me here, which means my point of intersection is right here, which is at negative, or which is at positive 1, negative 1. Okay, so that's my solution, and this would be, okay, so here's my y equals negative 3x plus 2, there's that line. Y equals 2x minus 3, here's that line. And where they cross is my point of intersection, which is at 1, negative 1, which is the solution to that equation. Okay, for this guy it's a little bit more difficult because I have to take it out of standard form, either into y-intercept form, or just use my standard form tricks to get the graph of the line. So here I'm going to take the opposite, I'm going to take c over b, which would be positive 1, and it's going to have a slope of 1 over 4 after I put it through. So I'm going to go 4 to the right, 1 up, and I'm going to make that line. This line is represented by x minus 4y equals negative 4. Okay, now for this guy, I'm going to take 12 over negative 4, which is negative 3. And my slope is going to be 5 to the right, 5 to the right, and 4 up. And it's going to cross right there, which happens to be at 1, 2, 3. Which is going to be at, looks like, let's go, it's going to be at 4 over, so this is going to be at 4, comma, looks like 2. It's going to be the point of where they intersect. Okay? And that's what we got going. That's all we're doing. Now, for the rest of the period, now that we've gotten all these notes down, all this review down, you're going to flip it back over and you're going to do those 6 problems for me. And what I want to see is your work on how you graph the line. So if you had to take it, I want you to identify the slope each time and the y-intercept each time. Those are the two things you need to show me. If you are taking them out equation-wise into slope-intercept form, that's fine too. Just make sure you're showing me your work, and I expect those 6 problems to be done and your full notes to be completed by the end of the period. I'll have everything. I'll collect them the first of the period tomorrow, and we'll go from there. Thank you.